Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of D1 All-Stars. My name is Joe Maldonado. I'm Alder with the city of Fitchburg. Super excited for our next guest, Reverend David Smith. He lives in the Jamestown neighborhood. He is a reverend at Door Creek Church. He's also a father and a husband. We don't know each other super well, but we're getting to know each other, and we got a lot of mutual friends. But, you know, along my campaign stop, I stopped by his house, recognized his name, and definitely had it in my mind for the past year and a half that I wanted to connect. So, David, welcome to D1 All-Stars.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So the purpose of D1 All-Stars is really to highlight the gems in our community and the folks who, give back and letting our neighbors know about, who's out there. So the kind of simple question that I always lead with is just tell me a little bit about you. Tell me your story. Anything you're willing to share and you're comfortable with sharing, let us know who you are.
All right. Well, as you said, I'm David Smith. I live in Fitchburg and Jamestown. Been living there for 17 and a half years. We moved into Fitchburg. Actually, we moved to Fitchburg 20 years ago. We were on King James Way first, and now we live on Danville Drive. So moved from Madison, the South Side, where I was born and grew up, and did a lot of my work and ministry early on there at the South Madison Neighborhood Center, and transitioned the neighborhood center into the Boys and Girls Club back in 1999. And so we decided to move to Fitchburg because we wanted our kids to go to the Verona area school district. Even though I am a product of the Madison school district, at that time, I didn't feel very comfortable with sending my kids there with such a large district and many issues and problems. So moving to Fitchburg, we've been there. Our kids have come through Verona area school district. Me and my wife were counting the other day. We've been in the district for 22 years. So we have 5 kids. We've been married for 32 years. So our last kid is a senior this year. So we will be done. Yes, we will be done with Verona area school district after this year. We enjoy Fitchburg. We are not involved with as many things right in our neighborhood as far as neighborhood associations and things like that, because my work as a pastor, I'm on the north side of Madison. That's where my congregation is. And so I sort of do work all across the city. As a pastor, I'm sort of thinking of a parish without walls. So just reaching anyone who's in need, being a pastor to them, people who don't have a church, trying to, encourage them and be there for them. So I've been doing this community work for over 30 years, and it's been rewarding. It's been challenging. It's been confusing sometimes, but we always count on our politicians to get it together and come through to do the right thing.
Awesome. So I got a ton of follow-up questions. Number one, you grew up on the South Side. I know, that's sort of really historical area. There's so many different cultures, folks that, have been brought together there. There's a lot of background, behind the community center that's now the Boys and Girls Club. Yeah. Tell us about growing up. What was that like, growing up in South Madison?
Oh, I haven't found any community like it. My kids are missing out on great upbringing and community, neighborly, extended family. It was awesome. South Madison is the best place, was the best place to live growing up. As a kid, we knew all our neighbors, all the kids played together. We didn't need video games and stuff. We created our own games out in the streets or in the parks or on the sidewalks. We ate over our friend's house. Our friends ate over our house. we stopped in. Sometimes we didn't even have to knock. We just go in and you're welcomed by their parents. You get scolded by your parents, and you also got scolded by your friends' parents. It's that kind of nucleus. The village takes a whole village to raise a child, and it really was like that. And this generation now is missing out on that.
So, do you feel that same sense of kind of neighborhood where you live, or is it a little bit more anonymous?
It's much more anonymous. People that we live around, they're very, very nice people. Many of them had kids older than ours. And so there wasn't a lot of, playtime and things for when our kids were smaller with a lot of our neighbors because they were grown, a lot of those. And we lived like 4 houses out of Madison on Danville. Our street is split between Fitchburg and Madison. So there's an elementary school right down the street from our house, Hegel Elementary School. And so we had to send our kids all the way out to Verona to Country View. But I mean, that was our choice to go to the school district. But I'm just saying, so your kids didn't go to school with most of the kids on our street. So that was kind of a sad thing.
So tell me a little bit about what brought you to the calling to become a reverend, a pastor.
Oh, so I've been involved with church all my life, pretty much. Was raised there. But when I became about 13 is when I really decided to make the choice myself to have a relationship with Christ and to go to church. And so from 13 on, I was in church and learning, involved with service, involved with serving. And I just felt the call to teach God's word and to help people, to serve people, to love people who are hurting. And that kind of carried on to into the ministry, into community ministry, and just being there for people. And yeah, it's kind of and when people ask, like, did you hear a voice from heaven or from the sky? It was like, no, it was just a still small voice in my heart, and just knew it was what God was telling me to do.
So tell me, like, what's the career path for somebody that wants to be in the clergy? I think about all the things, like, you want to be an accountant, you gotta get your accounting degree. You want to be a welder, you need to get your welding certification. How do you what's the steps here?
Well, the thing is that amongst denominations, it's different. In the more traditional, streamlined denominations like Lutheran, United Methodist, of course, Catholicism. Many of those churches, you have to go through their seminaries. You have a bachelor's degree, and then you go through their seminary. You get their seminary degree, then you get ordained or licensed and ordained in their denomination. And many of the other denominations, if you're talking about Baptists, some non-denominational churches, some charismatic or Pentecostal churches, those requirements are not as they're not required like that. And so you have to be trained. So it's not you feel called, well, go at it. You're trained under leadership, you're trained under denomination. For me, I had to become licensed, which means I had to do a trial sermon before the bishop in our denomination. 3 years after I did my trial sermon, I was ordained. So when I was ordained, that gave me the authority to do marriages, to do funerals, to pastor a church. And then I actually went and got my degree after I was in the ministry. So some denominations require you to get your degree before, and some give you the hands-on training, development, but you always have your goal to get your degree so that you can, deepen and sharpen your skills and your knowledge.
So you've been at it for how many years?
I've been for 30, over 30 years. So
you probably got the experience you can't teach in school, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
I was ordained in 87. So everything before that, was leading up to that. And then I got my degree, finished my degree finally in about, I want to say 2000, maybe.
Okay. So work on the job and then get the experience. This is really interesting. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about Door Creek Church, because I'm really excited to hear about what you do. So Joe Maldonado, Reverend David Smith, D1 All-Stars. We'll be back right after this. D1 All-Stars, Joe Maldonado, Reverend David A. Smith. Reverend Smith, if you could talk a little bit about Door Creek Church. So backstory, my next door neighbor used to work for you.
Yep.
Always used to hear about all his adventures with the kids from the neighborhood. Greg Dobie, been working with youth forever and a talented musician. But I'm really interested to hear how you got to Door Creek Church. What were you doing before that?
Well, before I was here at Door Creek Church, I was pastoring a small church on the south side of Madison that I pastored for over 20 years, Faith Community Baptist Church. So in 2017, we closed the church down. It just was time to move on with no successor, to take over. So it was time to move on. So really the short of the story was it took about 5 years to really let go. I knew that it was time to go, but I just kept holding on to the church. And each year I held on to it. It became more and more frustrating. Loved the people, but it was just, when you know it's time to go, you should go and not try to make things happen when they're not supposed to happen. Can
I jump in and just ask?
Yeah.
What was the thing that made it?
The thing that
sort of fall. I don't want to say, but like that made it so the church wasn't operating the way that it needed to be.
Yeah, right. It wasn't. We were stagnant. It wasn't growing, and we met at another church, or leased space at another church for 19 years, a Lutheran church on the south side of Madison. And they changed leadership and decided they didn't want us there anymore after 19 years. So they asked us to leave, and they gave us 60 days to leave. So we said, well, we'll take 30 and we'll leave, so during this whole time, I'm praying, and the Spirit of God is telling me it's time to let go. It's time to let go. It's time to move on. So that was the first sign, or that was one of many signs. But I said, no, we're going to hold on. We'll just find somewhere else to meet. So we found another place to meet, and we started meeting at Foster Funeral Home. I don't know if you're familiar with Foster Funeral and Cremation Services. It's on the south side also, because I was working there part-time as a chaplain in the funeral home, as I was also pastoring. And I was also driving a bus at that time, school bus.
Oh, man of many trades.
Yes. Now, the school bus driving was therapeutic for me. It was therapeutic because it was good being behind a big vehicle like that. It just felt good.
And you don't have to think as much as into like planning a sermon and like
you're the boss on the road,
you do it.
Vehicles. Yeah. And so when we started having church in the chapel at the funeral home, just something in me said, now come on, this God brought you to a place of we're dead people are, it's time to move on. It's time to bury this. It's time to come on, let's go. And, it still took almost a year before we let go. And then we realized, this was it. And then after we did, everybody was relieved. Everybody felt it was the right decision. So I didn't know what I was going to do after that. I thought I was going to sit back and relax and, just kind of enjoy life from a different perspective. But the door opened up for me here at Door Creek Church 4 or 5 months after we closed down. So when you don't know where you're going to go, you step out in faith. God opens the door for you to step right into. And so I've been with Door Creek since August of 2017. They hired me to launch a Northside Madison campus of the larger church on Sprecher Road in Madison. And so it took a year to get the launch going. So we opened up in 2018. I hired Greg on as my student ministry worker, and I miss him a lot. And so he worked for me for a couple of years. And so we're over here on the north side of Madison, a very rich, vital, vibrant community. North side is different from the south side. It's different from Fitchburg. But you try to find community wherever you are. You try to find where things are happening, where people are doing things, and people who care about not just kids in the community, but they care about families, they care about the elderly, they care about other people's businesses, and things like that. They care about the parks, all of that. And we're finding that here on the north side. So 4 years I've been here, and we'll see what's next. If there's, when the next thing comes.
Yeah. So one of the things that, Greg and I talked about was sort of kids from the neighborhood, just sort of gravitating towards the space. Mm-hmm. And, almost like an unanticipated result. What do you think that it was that, brought young people into your church?
Well, I wouldn't say it was unanticipated.
It was anticipated. Okay. It was planned.
Yeah, okay. It was planned. We launched here with the idea that we would draw neighborhood people here and kids from Sherman School and from some of the neighborhoods that are nearby. Now we're a little distant from the Warner Park area where a lot of the neighborhoods are with a lot of families, but we're not that far from there. We're on Aberg and Sherman. We're on the corner of Aberg and Sherman where the job center is, on that Northgate Mall. So we do draw kids from the near neighborhoods, but we anticipate that we would get families from the neighborhood. Now it hasn't been fast coming. It takes patience, and it takes work, and it takes keeping at it, because a lot of people have a lot of distrust with religious institutions today, and so we're fighting a battle that's bigger than us.
So there's after school programming involved as well, right?
Yes, we launched the organization called Door of Hope. And Door of Hope is a nonprofit that helps kids and families flourish. And so we do after school programs. We do a STEM program. We do arts. We're getting ready to start our arts and education program this fall. We do a summer program, just providing field trips, art, STEM, recreation, all those fun things you find in community centers, without calling ourselves a community center, because there's gobs of community centers over here on the north side of Madison. Mm-hmm. So we didn't want to be competing with them because they do such a great job. We just wanted to be another option for kids and for families. Excellent.
Well, David, we're gonna come back after this break, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the personal, family, and whatnot. So,
okay.
David Smith, Joe Maldonado, D1 All Stars. We will be back. I'm Reverend David Smith, Joe Maldonado, D1 All Stars. We are back. So you mentioned, I caught it, you're a father of five.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk fatherhood. I've got two. What was it like raising five kids? What's the spread first off?
My oldest is 27.
Okay.
And I have a 26-year-old, 21, 19, and 17.
Okay. So it's about a 10-year span.
Yep. So it's a 10-year between the oldest and the youngest. I have 3 grandchildren and a 4th on the way. So,
awesome.
yeah, so you see this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. 5 is considered a large family in these days. When I grew up, I'm the youngest of 8. So that's a huge family. But 3 and today, 3 and more is considered a big family, when you have 3 kids in these days, because it seems as though, it's just not as much family time as it used to be. So, yeah.
Are all 5 of them close?
Yes, they are. All 5 of them are still here in the area. I have 2 at the UW Madison now. My oldest graduated from UW Madison, and my second oldest, he graduated from Columbia College in Chicago. So I got 2 in UW now, and then my youngest is graduating from Verona this year, and we don't know where he's going to go yet, but he's looking at a few colleges.
Excellent. And what's tell me about the personalities. Do all of them get along with each other? They're duking it out.
Yeah, they get along. I got 3 girls and 2 boys. So girl, boy, girl, girl, boy. So of course they say the youngest is spoiled, and probably is. And actually my baby girl is probably more spoiled than he is. But yeah, my middle child, she's 21, and she kind of, she takes it all from the oldest and from the youngest, and she just kind of does her thing. Our first 2 kids were real easy. They were real easy. They were, they did everything. They took their naps. They ate their lunch, their dinner, and I should say our first 3. My last 2, wow. I said, if we would have had those 2 first, we wouldn't have had 5 kids. but they were more of a challenge, but we loved them. Of course, we were older once we got to our last 3, because there was 5 years between our first 2 and our last 3. We struggled to have kids, and the doctors told us that it would take a miracle for us to have 1 child, and here we are with 5, without any fertility drugs or anything like that, just prayer and faith. So.
Excellent. So tell me, from your great wisdom, what's the secret to parenthood? What do you think you got right? What do you think you would have done differently?
The secret to parenting is for you and your wife or partner, to be on the same side. To always don't let the kids divide you, because they figure out early who to go to for certain things, and a lot of times, yeah. So a lot of times for the harder things, they'll come to me because they think I'm going to say yes, and mom's going to say no, and so sometimes I trick them, but yeah, I think you just have to do that. You have to respect each child for their personality, and not try to say, well, you should be like your brother, you should be like your sister. They're individuals. They have their own personality, and you got to let them be that. You got to let them explore that. Yeah. So listen to them. Tell them you love them. Embrace them. They need to feel the embrace of their parents. I think hugging them and things like that, kissing them on their forehead, their cheek, and just, they need all of that as kids. And if they don't get it at home, they'll find it somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. Give me a funny parenting story. Some hilarious that always stuck with you.
Oh my goodness. Let me think about that one because
Okay, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
So I have a question about, the neighborhood. I know you're involved on the south side pretty heavily. Also now you're working heavily on the north side. Kind of given where you are, where you live, and the surrounding areas, what do you think your neighborhood needs more of? What do you think Fitchburg needs more of?
Fitchburg, they need a youth center. They need somewhere for young people to gather, to recreate, where families can gather. They need that youth center or community center, not just be a youth center, but a community center where there can be gatherings of neighborhood associations. The old fire station down there on Nesbitt is, I don't know what's happening with that, but I know it's vacant and it's been vacant for a while, but it seems like a perfect location for something like that. We have, there's a swimming club there now. There's a new church in the neighborhood. There's a new restaurant opening pretty soon. So there are things that are there, but there's no community center. And we need that. Verona Road is a barrier to get to the Boys and Girls Club for many families. And so we need something on that west side of Verona Road.
Absolutely. All right. So we got 1 minute left. Did you think of your funny parenting story?
Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be thinking of that. Most of the funny parenting stories for us have to deal with our parents. So it would be our kids' grandparents. And that is, they never let us forget how we were as kids. So they would say to our kids, "I'm so glad to see you getting this back." It was always a day and say, "One day you're going to learn." And so our kids would eat that up. They loved laughing at us about that because they loved seeing our parents get on us about things. I mean, me and my wife's parents are, they're all gone now, but coming up as our kids were growing up, they would love that. And they would go to grandparents and tell on us. And so we would get in trouble with our parents. And so that was always a running thing in our home. Yeah.
All right. Reverend David Smith, thank you so much for joining us. The quote of the day is, "One day you are going to learn." All right. Enjoy having you on the show, D1 All-Stars. Joe Maldonado.
Thank you.
Reverend David Smith, thank you.